brookeboothcoaching.com. Going to talk about passive aggression today. I am an expert at this, meaning I am really good at using it in my relationship. So we'll talk about what that looks like specifically in the context of a Mormon mixed faith marriage, because that's what I do. Mormons in a mixed faith marriage. So I have a theory about those of us who were raised in the LDS culture. We do not like confrontation. We do not like disagreement. We really like being on the same page. And when we're not, it feels wrong and it feels uncomfortable. And I believe this is due to many factors. One factor in all of this is the teaching to avoid contention. Right? We often interpret this to mean to avoid disagreement or conflict. So when disagreement and or conflict arise, it feels wrong. We try to avoid it at all costs. So what this often leads to is indirect disagreement, indirect conflict, which is more commonly called passive aggression. Now, note there's nothing wrong with conflict and disagreement. They are normal and they can be healthy, to inform other people of choices and beliefs. Now, being spiteful, malicious, unkind, mean, those can definitely be problematic. But I want to point out that conflict and disagreement do not equate with unkind, malicious, spiteful. We often conflate the two, but they are two very separate things. So when we're constantly trying to avoid conflict, because we're so afraid of being, malicious or spiteful and all that kind of stuff, so we avoid conflict and disagreement altogether, we often default to this passive aggression. Now, passive aggression is when you express negative emotions indirectly. So instead of talking about them directly, let me give you some examples. Like I said, I'm very familiar with doing this. Saying everything's fine when you are upset. Withdrawing, avoiding, silent treatment, other forms of passive aggression. When you deny your anger or your frustration. When you act neutral, pleasant, or cheerful. When you do not feel that way. You complain about things. Then you may complain about taking care of the kids at church instead of saying you're sad to go alone. Procrastination. Often we do this in an effort to try to punish our partner so they can see that they're hurting us. And then this general feeling that nothing is satisfactory. General communication that nothing is satisfactory. Now, like I said, I'm very skilled at all of these behaviors. It is my default behavior. And I'm very good at complaining instead of telling how I feel. I'm very good at avoiding communication instead of being clear that I've been hurt. I claim to be fine when I'm deeply upset. All of them. I'm very good. And I believe it's really a common behavior. I see it with my clients and other things. I think it's a common behavior in a mixed faith marriage. Like I said, I know it is in mine. So let me give you a few examples of how this passive aggression can show up in your mixed faith marriage, and maybe you can start to see it. Because when we can start to see it, then we can start to do something about it. When it just is happening in the background without our awareness, we have no control over it. So let me give you a few examples, maybe from my own life. Spouse says, "How are you? You seem upset," and that's answered with, "I'm fine." Instead of, "I'm deeply hurt about your comment earlier about my faith transition that you offered in front of the kids. I need some space right now to process this emotion, and I'm not ready to talk about it right now." So the "I'm fine" is the passive, and then I give you an example of what the direct communication would look like. Another way this may come up is you point out all the hypocrisies and inaccuracies in the sacrament meeting talk that you just listened to. Instead of telling your spouse that you've decided to stay home and have your own back about your decision to step away. Maybe you're conveniently not at home when your spouse gets back from hours away at church so they can feel and know what it feels like to be alone during some of the precious family/leisure time that's available each weekend, instead of being home and excited to greet them on their return and use that time together to build connection. Do any of these sound familiar? I know it can really happen all the time, and we're completely under the, we just don't realize it. It's under the radar. It's not on our conscious awareness. And a lot of times it happens because we're just reacting to our own emotions that are buried so deep we don't even realize what's happening. And the irony is we want love, we want approval, we want connection from our spouse. What the passive aggression does is it creates anger and rejection and disconnection. Passive aggression kills emotional intimacy. It derails our very best intentions. Now, it's a learned skill. You probably learned it from your parents, like I learned it from mine. Wonderful people, but we sometimes pass on unhelpful skills. But luckily, it can be unlearned. You can learn to be direct and honest. You can learn to be clear. And you don't have to be mean while you're doing it. You can be clear and kind. You can be direct and honest and gentle. It takes some skills to learn this, and it takes practice, but it is totally possible. This is one of the things I do when I work with my clients is we talk about, we bring it to awareness, the passive aggression, and then we decide and we create and we cultivate what it would look like and what it would be like to communicate directly instead. It's a huge, huge game changer because when we can eliminate all that passive aggression and we show up direct and clear, we're communicating 10 times more effectively. We're building a foundation for intimacy and future growth and health of the relationship. And we're cleaning out all of the consequences that come from the passive aggressive communication. It's a very significant, huge shift to make. So if you think passive aggression is happening in your mixed faith marriage, I think you might need a life coach to help you take a look and find out where it's showing up and decide how to clean it up. I offer a few free calls each month. Just reach out to me at my website, or you can direct message me here on Facebook and ask to schedule a free call. I only offer a few slots, not a ton, but if you act, now you can probably grab one. And what we'll do is we'll spend some time together, an hour on the phone call, where I learn about your mixed faith marriage. I find out where you are, I find out where you want to be, and we start to recognize the obstacles that are preventing you from getting there. All right, it's a really powerful process, and I think valuable for anybody in a mixed faith marriage. If you're ready for that, reach out to me, just direct message me, or go to my website, brookboothcoaching.com. All right, I'm wishing you the best.